Are you like me worried about our son's well-developing emotional intelligence? Well, you're not alone. In this video, I'm going to share with you 7 tips to make sure that you do everything possible to ensure your son's emotional well-being. This is me, Dr. Ruben Gagarin. I'm your favorite family psychiatrist, and I am a parent. We're going to start with discussing deep roots of this issue that are very complicated. It includes biology, psychology, social issues. We're going to cover it briefly before we jump to solutions. Let's start with biology. Although it contributes only 10 or 15% to understanding of the difference between boys and girls, but it is an important foundation. So, girls have much more oxytocin. So, because of that, they get a kick from talking, kissing, hugging, grooming each other, both physically and psychologically. They also tend to choose TV shows about some sort of interpersonal drama. How do I know this? That is because my daughter tends to turn on those TV shows in the family room, regardless whether I want it or not. So I also get drawn into that, so I become part of this little social circle. What does my son watch? I honestly don't really know, because he only watches TV shows in his room, or maybe he uses headphones, so I'm not involved, so I don't really know. I remember when my daughter was 3 and my son was 7, she ran to me in tears, and when I asked what happened, she said, "Well, I told my brother that I loved him, and do you know what he told me?" I said, "What?" She said, "Okay." And she got very upset about it. Well, even at that young age, she felt that something was wrong if a person said okay as a response to her saying, "I love you." But if I think of my son, first of all, I never remember him actually saying spontaneously, "I love you." And even if another person responds okay, he probably wouldn't even notice. Considering that that was happening at a pretty young age, I think it is more biological. I also remember when I was a teenager, I was much more likely to enjoy a movie with grunting and screaming rather than crying and talking. Even more important in biology, the social expectations. It won't come as a surprise to you to know that the girls are expected to be more expressive, more emotional, albeit never hysterical, and the boys are supposed to be tough, never show their feelings, but they're also supposed to be emotionally available when it's needed. These societal expectations are impossible to meet, but we hear the social messages from the very young age. They get reinforced in our families and schools and films, etc. So we internalize them, we save them in our heart, and that translates into third important point, our psychology. This is what we tell ourselves, how we're supposed to behave in certain situations. In psychiatry and psychology, we call it cognition and automatic thoughts. We are not always aware of these automatic thoughts, especially if our beliefs ingrained deep inside. What happens when we cannot express subtle negative emotions like sadness, anxiety, fear, doubt, guilt, hopelessness? Well, it is all melts together and blows up as a rage. And then what does our society do with raging people? It rejects them and puts them away. It is no coincidence that our jails are filled with angry men. One way how our society accepts expression of anger and rage is through voting. So they go and vote for other angry men who promise to break down the system so they can feel free again. Therefore, teaching young men to express their feelings, it is not only a mental health issue, but it is also shaping our democracy. Here's a controversial point. I think in our fight against mental health stigma, we made it sound as if most of negative emotions are actual illnesses. For example, if you Google search word depression, it is going to tell you that that is mental illness and you need to go and see a psychiatrist to get help. Not that depression is a normal human emotion that we all experience when we realize that we cannot get what we really want. As a psychiatrist, I see depressive disorders day in and day out, so I wish people understood the difference and those who need help easily reached out and our services would be easily accessible. And those who do not develop mental health disorders would actually learn how to manage their normal emotions at school or from their parents. By the way, that is one of the main reasons for this channel. Let's move on. Maybe it is counterintuitive, but pathologizing normal negative emotions actually deter our boys from reaching out for help. Why? Because our society also does not expect men to get sick. So boys, they don't want to be diagnosed with mental illness, so therefore they do not reach out for help until they're brought to the hospital in crisis against their will. I've seen that too. Now, the 7 tips I promised on how we parents can support normal development of emotional intelligence in our boys. Number 1, we have to make sure that we address impossible social expectations for both our sons and our daughters. I'll give you an example. Another day I encountered a leaky faucet, and I felt quite insecure and inferior to plumbers when I realized that I don't have a skill set to allow me to fix it. I felt as if I'm not a real man because I cannot fix a faucet, and for that matter that I cannot build furniture or build houses, etc. But is it really fair? See, after years and years in university, I really didn't have time to learn the skill set for another profession. And as a matter of fact, I make enough money to just hire a plumber, but nonetheless, since I'm a product of the society, just having money and hiring somebody is not the same as being a real man and being able to fix everything yourself. So in that situation, I should have told my son that, see, this is what happens. I do feel inferior, and talking about my feelings is going to help. Point 2, I feel inferior, but that is not fair. I spent so many years studying, and I would rather go back to university again than becoming a plumber, so I still think I made the right decision. Number 2, make sure that you model talking about your feelings. If you don't show them how to talk about your feelings, they won't be able to. So if you yourself having difficulties, maybe you should see a therapist. In safety of the office, you can develop that vocabulary so you can teach your kids. Number 3, create safe space to talk. What does that mean? No expectations. For example, when you attack your son when he comes from school asking how they're feeling, how the day went, and what they talk to their friends about, they're probably going to shut down and go to their room. But when the time is right, they might just talk to you when you just maybe drive quietly in the car, or maybe do a puzzle, or maybe after watching a movie, or taking a walk, or maybe throwing a ball around. So be patient, create a space, and let them talk on their own terms. In my family, that usually happens after midnight in the kitchen. I don't know why. Number 4, it is important that our boys understand that wisdom is more important than brute strength. And the wise person is the one who accepts their emotions, who are aware how they're feeling, so they don't get blindsided by their feelings and act impulsively out of passion and then regret. You can say something that talking about feelings is tough. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it. So, and acknowledge that it may be actually challenging. Number 5, it is very important for our sons to develop the right language to talk about their feelings. So when they're ready, they actually know how. It took me many years to figure out how to talk about my feelings, and I'm still learning, but I know that for my kids, what I'm trying to do is maybe set up a family night when I can pick movies that portray people with good emotional intelligence, complex and consistent characters, that is both entertaining but educational, and the characters who can model how they talk about their feelings. Another idea is to suggest your kids to read fiction books, or even better, ask them what they read in high school for their English and read it parallel with them, so you can discuss it when you have that ride in the car. Number 6, make sure that you stop peddling the same social messages that you internalized when you were a kid. For example, to your daughters, ensure that you tell them how smart and strong they are, and encourage your boys to talk about their emotions and praise them for being vulnerable sometimes. And finally, number 7, the most important point, be patient. You cannot force emotional intelligence on someone. You have to give them space and time to develop it properly. So Patience, patience, patience. In conclusion, another important point. About 10 to 15% of boys, the same as girls, will develop a major depressive disorder. That is official name of medical condition. In that case, they actually do need to see a medical doctor. They can start with family doctor who may refer them to a psychiatrist. They can see a therapist who sometimes can help. And occasionally, boys or girls may need psychiatric medications to dig them out of that big hole. How do you know? Well, the warning signs usually affect physical functioning. When you notice that your son maybe is not eating, is not sleeping, or maybe sleeping all day and all night, and maybe eating too much, that may be a sign that something is off. When you don't see them having fun, when they cannot get up in the morning to go to school, their grades may collapse, they don't talk about their future, or maybe sometimes sound kind of very hopeless and maybe even jokingly bring up suicide. So that is very important to address. Make sure that they get support, and if they don't want to talk to you, set up an appointment with a mental health professional. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this was helpful. Subscribe to my channel to get notified about new videos, and also subscribe to my new newsletter. See you next time. Bye-bye.